Transformers. That is a word I've said a hell of a lot in my lifetime, and a series I've talked about quite a bit on this channel. In this video, my final video of 2017, I wanted to do something I haven't yet done before. Talk about the series as a whole, the history behind it, and what it means to me. Transformers' legacy began when Hasbro bought some toy molds from Takara Tomy, a Japanese company producing the Diaclone and Microman toy lines. By taking these molds, Hasbro crafted a story involving two factions of robots, the Autobots and the Decepticons, transforming robots from the planet Cybertron trapped in an endless war that ravaged the planet. Heading the Autobots was Optimus Prime, a noble warrior seeking to bring peace for all Cybertronians, and Megatron, the leader of the Decepticons desiring peace through tyranny and total domination over the planet. Transformers came to life in 1984 with the infamous animated series that started it all, created by Sunbow Productions. The show lasted for 5 seasons and 98 episodes, as well as in 1986 having the fantastic Transformers the movie, which, spoiler alert, killed off Optimus Prime, as well as several other major characters, to bring in a new cast of Autobots and Decepticons. Optimus was replaced by Rodimus Prime, and Megatron became Galvatron. The movie introduced the fearsome Unicron, the giant planet eater who threatened to consume Cybertron and all of those on it. The Transformers is revered as one of the most memorable cartoons of the 80s and was a massive success. The cartoon was soon accompanied by 2 Marvel Comics series, one in the US and one in the UK, that initially attempted to maintain the same continuity but eventually just gave up. The US comic began as a 4-issue limited series and expanded into a 90-issue epic, not including spin-offs. The UK comic differed as they were released as weekly and eventually bi-weekly strips, lasting for 332 issues. Whoa! The UK comics focused more on backstory and what-if stories, with a lot of their stories being set in the future. Transformers' initial success was what drove Hasbro to keep the series alive for many years. The Generation 1 toy line continued on until 1990, and during this time plenty of ludicrous toy ideas and gimmicks were introduced, going beyond simple robots that transform into vehicles and other items, including, but not limited to, Headmasters, Target Masters, Power Masters, Pretenders, and Action Masters, with the latter being when Hasbro employees got drunk and decided to take the Transform out of Transformers. Now they're just Urs. In Japan, Generation 1 would receive several sequel shows, including the Headmasters, Super God Master Force, Transformers Victory, and Transformers Zone. The 1990s got loud.
Red Wing is punishing, his Gatling gun is illin'. The Decepticon bombers a Transformer-rama, a 3-in-1 villain that's chillin'.
To continue on from their success, Hasbro released Generation 2, which attempted to replicate the magic of the Generation 1 toy line, though in the process added some of that beautiful 90s angst. However, the toy sales of the line dwindled in comparison to its predecessor, due to it not having much marketing to back it up. Generation 2 received a 12-issue comic series featuring some of the most over-the-top violence in the whole franchise, but the supposed G2 cartoon was nothing more than reissued Generation 1 episodes with some fancy 3D graphics replacing the theme song. The Generation 2 comic focused on the newly introduced villain G-Axis, who led his own army of advanced Cybertronians who forced the Autobots and Decepticons to work together to take him down, as well as the later introduced evil entity known as the Swarm. Apparently, this had to be done with the highest body count possible. With interest declining with the series due to the rather lackluster results of Generation 2, and I have no idea how that happened because I don't know how anyone could possibly resist this, Hasbro felt that they needed to try something entirely different. So, 1996 saw the manifestation of someone saying, hey, you know what'd be cool? Transforming animals. Enter Beast Wars, or Beasties in Canada. Beasties. A 52-episode epic detailing the battles of the Maximals and Predacons, stuck on a prehistoric Earth after traveling back in time. This was the first Transformers show that put plot over marketing, and was also one of the most expensive cartoons ever produced at the time, being entirely 3D animated by Mainframe Entertainment, and this turned out to be a huge success. Beast Wars is considered one of the greatest cartoons of all time, and is fondly remembered by those who grew up with it. Transformers was not without its controversies and competitors, however, such as the infamous Macross Jetfire case, or the GoBots, Transformers' greatest competitor at the time. Hasbro actually bought Tonka in 1991 to prevent them from continuing to release competing brands, and in said acquisition now own the toy manufacturer Kenner, who would go on to create the idea of the Beast Wars characters. 1994 saw the debut of BotCon, the originally unofficial made official Transformers convention, which was held annually at various locations in America, and allowed Transformers fans to meet voice actors, artists, writers, to buy and sell toys, or just to hang out with fellow fans. In 2002, 3H Productions acquired the license for BotCon and hosted the convention until 2005, where Fun Publications took over. Both companies produced official Transformers comics available each year that expanded upon the lore and the story of various Transformers franchises. In 2016, Fun Publications lost the license to BotCon, and in 2017, Hasbro held their very first HasCon, which celebrated all of their brands, meaning that 2016 was most likely the very last BotCon. 1999 saw Beast Machines, the sequel to Beast Wars that continued directly on from where the series ended. The plot of Beast Machines followed the Maximals as they returned to Cybertron, only to find that Megatron had taken over the entire planet and was ruling over it with an iron fist along with his Viacon army. The show sees the Maximals attempting to take back control of Cybertron and returning it to its natural organic state. Though met with positive fan reception when it was first unveiled, Beast Machines quickly grew to become one of the most controversial Transformers series due to its questionably designed protagonists, slow plot progression, and repetitive action scenes, as well as the heavy emphasis on the environment and nature, seemingly going against the ideas of the whole series. Regardless of how well it was received, Beast Machines served as the conclusion to the original Generation 1 continuity, at least in the West. Japan had a different sequel to Beast Wars, however, in the form of the comedic and 2D animated anime Beast Wars 2, following the adventures of Leo Convoy and his group of zany Maximals doing battle against Galvatron and his Predacons. This would soon be followed by Beast Wars Neo, following Big Convoy and his Maximals fight against Magmatron and his Predacons to collect the Angol-Mois energy capsules that were released at the end of Beast Wars 2. Initially planned to continue on from Beast Machines in the West was the series Transtech, which would have seen a new series set entirely on Cybertron with a cast of old and new characters sporting interesting designs. However, the series was eventually scrapped. During this time, Dreamwave Publications acquired the license to produce Transformers comic books, which followed their own continuity that took elements from both the Marvel comics and the G1 cartoon. The main G1 Dreamwave comics focused on a more mature and gritty story, similar to that of Beast Wars and Machines, and explored further the effects of the Great War, as well as the mythology of the series. Dreamwave released 2 Generation 1 stories, a Micromaster series, and a series called The War Within, which, for the first time ever in the franchise, followed stories set entirely on Cybertron and during the Great War, and so was very well received with fans. Meanwhile, without a main cartoon to carry on the series with, Hasbro instead brought over the Japanese anime car robots from Japan and repurposed it as Robots in Disguise, until they could come up with a new series. Rid became the very first Japanese Transformers show to be dubbed and adapted for American audiences, but had the misfortune of airing around the time of 9/11, which was, problematic. This didn't stop the show from continuing until early 2002, where the show's 39-episode long run came to a close. Rid served as a more comedic take on the Transformers formula, with the show prioritizing humor and characters over action and plot. As a result, the Transformers fanbase at the time was quite divided about the series. Rid saw the return of the Autobots, though still kept the Predacons as the main villains, with the Decepticons being created later on. This series has faded into obscurity due to the rights of it being taken from Hasbro, preventing it being released properly on any DVD, meaning that all that beautiful Skybite action can never truly be yours. During Rid's run, Hasbro finally had enough time to create the next big Transformers series. 2002 saw the debut of Transformers Armada, a series that introduced the concept of mini-cons and told a tale of an Autobot-Decepticon war that centered around collecting these small bots, riding off the success of the catch-em-all phase that Pokemon had created. The show would continue until 2003, with its 3rd season adapting a more mature and serious story, labeling itself as the Unicron battles, as the Autobots and Decepticons are forced to deal with the looming threat of the Planet Eater. Armada was initially the cause of skepticism among the fandom, most especially due to the animation and constant dubbing errors that plagued the series. But Armada proved to be immensely successful with children, with the toy sales being at the series' highest, and the show lasting 52 episodes before its finale, in which Unicron and the Decepticons are defeated once and for all. Armada's conclusion saw a sequel in the form of Transformers Energon. This fantastic series replaced a majority of the 2D animation in favor of amazing looking CG models for the bots, as well as further expanding upon the Armada introduced concept of power linksing. in which two bots could combine together to become stronger. The show was a direct continuation of Armada, set 10 years after the conclusion of the series, in which the Decepticons were either dead or scattered, and the new threat was that of the Terracons, beasts created with the intention of stealing Energon in order to revive Unicron. Energon was plagued with even more errors than Armada, which has caused it to be considered one of the worst Transformers shows out there. Both Armada and Energon were accompanied by Dreamwave comics that followed their own, much better stories, but the Energon comic was left unfinished as Dreamwave went bankrupt in 2005. The final chapter of the Unicron trilogy was Transformers Cybertron, originally the Japanese anime Galaxy Force that existed in a separate continuity to the previous two shows. When it was brought to the States, Hasbro made some changes to ensure that it loosely continued on from Energon. It also has the best intro ever.
The Autobots wage their battle to destroy!
Due to Galaxy Force not being a sequel to Armada and Energon, all reference to them came entirely from dialogue, and minor additions to the animation. The plot centered on a black hole threatening to swallow up Cybertron following Unicron's defeat in Energon, and so Optimus and his team of Autobots, who all have accents for some reason, have to collect the 4 Cyberplanet keys before the Decepticons can use them for evil. Sorry, I can't help it. Cybertron's dubbing team was much more capable than the ones handling the previous two shows, as they found ways to avoid translation errors and make the series, actually comprehensible. The end of the series saw the final defeat of Galvatron and the destruction of Unicron once and for all. Again. And so, after the Unicron trilogy came to a close, the Transformers series went quiet. And then, in 2007... the Michael Bay Transformers movie brought the series back into the mainstream, once again making Transformers a household name. The film didn't go down well with critics, but became instantly loved by many fans, drawing thousands into the series. Bringing the classic Transformers we all know and love onto the big screen, the film saw the return of Bumblebee, creating the idea of him possessing a damaged voice box, and featured brutal violence and mature, or rather, immature themes. The movie introduced the concept of the Allspark, an artifact that allowed Transformers to create life, and was also the reason for the bots and cons bringing their war to Earth. Despite the critical reception, Transformers proved to be a box office hit, and reinvigorated interest in the dormant franchise. The Bay film would spawn 4 sequels, all of them reasonably poorly received. Revenge of the Fallen, Dark of the Moon, Age of Extinction, and most recently, The Last Knight. All films that continued the epic big screen adventures of Prime and the gang as they face off against the never-dying Megatron. Around the same time came the release of Transformers Animated, which abandoned the usual Transformers story in favor of creating a brand new one. The series was yet another show that caused outcry due to its interesting choice of animation style, as well as ditching a majority of staples in the series in favor of completely rewriting them. For instance, Ultra Magnus leads the Autobots, and Optimus Prime is a young space bridge mechanic. Animated proved itself to be more than meets the eye. I know, I'm amazing, thank you. It featured surprising character depth and development, epic action and fight scenes, rich lore and references, and plenty of twists and turns in the narrative. Animated is now considered one of the best Transformers cartoons to date, though it had its planned 4th season cancelled by Cartoon Network. Piece of shit! Years earlier, a company by the name of IDW Publishing acquired the license to Transformers comics from the bankrupt Dreamwave, and commenced their own incredibly long-running Generation 1 continuity, beginning with the 3-part Infiltration, Escalation, and Devastation series, and expanding into, way too many other stories. Like, holy crap, there's way too many to even list. IDW proved to be one of the most story and action-rich versions of Transformers comics, and up until very recently, when they started introducing a little bit of that politics, they were mostly well received with fans. 2009 saw the release of an ongoing series that detailed the Autobots and Decepticons on Earth, which concluded in 2010. This caused the series to split into 2 lines. More Than Meets the Eye, and Robots in Disguise. One which follows the tale of Rodimus leading a group of 200 Autobots in search of the legendary Knights of Cybertron, and the other a tale of those left behind on Cybertron in a hostile and dangerous environment following the conclusion of the war. In 2016, IDW made the ingenious decision to cross over their Transformers comics with a lot of other Hasbro-related properties that no one cares about, such as Action Man, Micronauts, and Mask. Oh, and G.I. Joe. This eventually led to even more comics, and holy crap, how can anyone keep up with comics anymore? Traveling back in time a bit before everything got expensive, 2010 saw the release of Transformers War for Cybertron, which kickstarted the Aligned continuity. It and its eventual sequel, Fall of Cybertron, detailed the events prior to Transformers Prime, and let players take part in the Great War. Speaking of, Transformers Prime was the brand new Transformers cartoon that debuted later that year. A fully CG epic that emphasized plot and violence, and featured a twist on familiar characters and stories. The show lasted 3 seasons and concluded in 2013 with a TV movie by the name of Predacons Rising. The show also won multiple Daytime Emmy Awards, which is a testament to how well the show was received with both fans and critics. Transformers Prime took more influence from the Michael Bay movies, what with the violence and the lack of Bumblebee's voice, but story-wise took elements from every other Transformers series before it. The show was more violent, more story-oriented, and is overall my favorite Transformers series out there. In 2012, Transformers Rescue Bots was released, as both a toy line and cartoon that aimed to appeal to young children, while still remaining within the aligned continuity. As a result, in various episodes of the cartoon, characters from Prime cross over. The story features the titular Rescue Bots, 4 Autobots living on Griffin Island and defending it from the various threats that arise. Rescue Bots would eventually become the longest running Transformers show of all time, and in 2018 is set to expand into another series by the name of Rescue Bots Academy. In 2013, IW Publishing released Regeneration 1, a 20-issue series that continued on directly from where the Marvel US Comics left off over 20 years ago. The plot followed Soundwave reviving the Cybertronian Civil War, the state of Earth after the Autobots leave Megatron to wreak havoc on it, and eventually the arrival of Geaxis, akin to that of Generation 2. The story ends with all Transformers eventually all dying out to make way for a new generation. The sequel to Prime came in the form of Robots in Disguise, which saw a change in the animation style and mature content. The show focused on Bumblebee and a ragtag group of Autobots as they found themselves stuck on Earth, tasked with hunting down the rogue Decepticons roaming the planet. The Robots in Disguise series served as the final component of the aligned continuity, though reintroduced some old concepts from past series, such as combiners and minicons. It also wasn't very good. The underlying plot of the show was revealed to be a group of Decepticons becoming a corrupt Cybertronian council and banishing any followers of Optimus Prime in an attempt to prepare for Megatron's potential return. But their plans were thwarted at the end of the series, which finally concluded the aligned continuity. And that brings us to today. With a new series right around the corner, who knows where Transformers will head next? There are still a few other Transformers series that I've neglected to mention in this video, such as Robot Masters, Spinal Tech, Cloud, but I figured I'd just give the main outline in this video, and hopefully serve as a guide to those new to the series who are kind of lost with all the different series within this franchise. What makes Transformers so special to me is not just the concept of giant robots who can transform into vehicles beating the crap out of each other. That's cool enough on its own, but the series over the years has managed to make that concept never go stale, by reinvigorating it constantly with different series and shows that keep it interesting, with fantastic characters, some of the most epic storylines in anything ever, and some genuinely emotional moments. When I was about 10 years old and officially into the series, I knew Transformers was something that I was never going to get sick of. And here I am 6 years later, with about 60% of the content on my channel relating to Transformers. This is a series that I will hold dear for a long time yet, and I hope that the series continues to be as awesome and unique as it has been with the past 3 decades. Thank you all for such a fantastic year and allowing me to share my love of this series with all of you. I wouldn't be here if not for you. Although I do intend to stray from it, you can still expect some Transformers content from me in the future. Thank you all once again, and Happy New Year. Diamondbolt out.